start with Holly. And Holly, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself. You are, but the microphone is not. Masha, can you switch with her maybe, and then we'll troubleshoot yours? Well, they're recording it for later, and so those.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
There we go. Thank
So
you.
this is my husband. Many of you have never met him, Dallas. He's also an audio engineer. So if any of you ever wonder when I speak and all of that, I always get critiqued at home. He's a very good coach for what I do. So I am Holly Bell. I'm the director of cannabis for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And I'm appointed by Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Freed. She brought me down here to implement her vision of what a hemp program would look like in the state of Florida. And that's my day-to-day job. And also to co-manage with the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, or the OMMU, the edibles portion for the medical program. We also have jurisdiction over the pesticide use, the fertilizer use, the weights and scales they use, and we also have consumer services at FDACS. So we oversee all that in the medical program also. And in my endeavors through the last 3 years, I've had the pleasure of having some committees and committee members that have helped me, 3 of which are in the audience today. Will has helped on the hemp program. Zach co-chairs my medical marijuana program. Raise your hand higher, Zach. So he has a lot of experience in the industry. Will has a lot of research, genetic experience in the industry from UF. And then I saw one other person, Jimmy. Where are you? Where did he leave us? So Jimmy was here, Johnson. He's a veteran, and he is also on my medical marijuana advisory committee. And they get to know those committee members. They're an extension of us and the commissioner. So they're great people to know and give your input to, especially if you know them or you want to know them, you want to be more involved. They're a great group to reach out to. Our meetings are monthly on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and it is open to the public to listen in and have comment at the end. And we welcome you to join us. So, and we do have a town hall meeting the 4th Thursday at 3 o'clock of every month, where I bring in various topics, and we just selected our topics for the upcoming year. So we'll be posting those on our website, fdacs.gov, and we do record those, and you can see those on our website and pull those back up and re-watch them if you can't join us live.
Thank you,
So that's all
Holly.
about me.
Thank you. Masha.
Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Masha Bellinson, and I'm with ACS Laboratory. We are an ISO-accredited, DEA licensed and certified by the Department of Agriculture testing lab for hemp. We are also test cannabis in Florida for the licensed MMTCs. So we work both with the Department of Agriculture and the OMMU to uphold their standards for testing. So beyond potency, the pesticides, residual solvents, mycotoxins, all of that stuff, the purities. So our job as a third-party testing laboratory is we want to make sure that the safest product is going out to the consumer, and that for hemp that it's compliant and below where total THC is below 0.3%. We work with we're going to be talking about Delta 8, but we test Delta 8 CBD. We test 22 cannabinoids. So recently, there's been a lot of innovations in hemp, and so our testing is evolving. And so, but Florida has the strictest guidelines for testing, so that's for sure. So if we work with any makers that want to sell across the country, then we look at the Florida guidelines for testing.
Thank you.
Can we rephrase one thing you
Sure,
said, just
sure.
because I get confusion on this? We don't certify labs at FDACS. You are on our approved list
Okay.
for testing for cultivation. And that's really important to know because they have to agree to certain standards. and they have agreed to that and they follow those. So that's really important to know. But that's just for cultivation. You're allowed to use any lab for testing in product. We don't have a list for that, just cultivation, but they are on our approved list for cultivation.
And for cannabis with the OMMU,
You
that's
are
the certification. Got
It's the OMMU that has certified
All right.
them.
Good.
Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Justin.
Awesome. So my name is Justin Cummings. I'm the vice president of a company called Nature Pay. We started in 2014 when Alaska went legalized. We provide merchant accounts for our main book of business is dispensary and delivery companies around the country. But we also service Delta 8, Delta 10, CBD. So we provide merchant services, give people the ability to do face-to-face and e-commerce business, as well as we're not a bank, but we partner with a lot of banks around the country to provide cannabis operators and Delta 8, Delta 10 with compliant banking.
Thank you. I just want to take a read on the audience. You all picked this panel to come to today. Tell me why. Are you a consumer of Delta 8? Is anybody a consumer? Okay. Is anybody a producer of Delta 8? Allegedly? No. Is anybody a reformulator or making finished products or anything like that with Delta 8 in it? Okay. They all had nowhere else to go, you guys. So we better.
I'm a thought leader in the industry.
Okay.
And so people are coming to me and they're asking questions.
Like what? Give me one.
Are they naturally derived? What are.
Oh, the minors. So,
Those are the kind
yeah.
of questions that we get all the time for the comment section.
It's interesting. And I think here's what's interesting is that we have kind of a micro macro level, so on the one hand, we have people who are looking like Holly, who are looking overall legislation. How do we manage this? Then we're in the middle and we're testing and we're in the nitty gritty and we're testing. And these are all the numbers. And then I've got banking. And I think if whatever Delta 8 is to the cannabis industry, Justin is to the banking industry. Because do you see what I'm saying? Delta 8 is getting around. I mean, the fundamental issue with Delta 8 is that we have prohibition and people want cannabinoids, and they're going to figure out a way to get it. And the way they're getting it right now is from Delta 8. People need banking services and payment processing services, and banks aren't going to let them have that. They are prohibited for that service. So we have creative people who figure out a way around it within maybe the letter of the law, not so much the spirit of the law. And there's a niche that's provided, and I want you to speak to this niche, and then we'll kind of go back to Delta 8, okay? But I want you to speak to this niche that exists in an industry that, although they pay tens of thousands a year in license fees, I'm speaking to cannabis right now, cannot have access to banking services.
Somebody in the audience said they work in the banking world. Got it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of banks around the country that will work with cannabis. They have to follow a lot of different guidelines. And I know banking. I'm not a banking expert, but they have to file a lot of SARS reports for every dollar or every penny that goes in and out of the accounts. So there's a lot of compliance as far as banking goes. There's quite a few banks that will work here in Florida that I know of that will work with cannabis businesses and cannabis related businesses. So I'm in Chicago, so we're a hotbed for banking in Chicago and whatnot, and merchant services. But so there is a lot of banks that work out there in the industry. I mean, the Safe Banking Act just went through the House again, so we'll see what Congress does. But yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity for folks to get banking, and it's since 2014, that's been our we've just really been educating the industry on compliant ways to do, because there's a lot of compliance built into banking and merchant services.
Yeah. Thank
No
you.
industry can grow without him. I mean, how many people carry cash and pay for things in this room?
Well, in this room, it's probably a disproportionate amount, but I think if you ask the general public, you would get the answer that you're looking for. The problem, well, speak about that, Masha. How many of your customers want to pay you in cash?
We're lucky if they pay us. No, they pay us. No, but the thing is like we do something very unique where we don't collect we don't collect the testing costs until it results. Unless it's, we work with 15 countries as well. Unless it's coming from a foreign bank, then they prepay. But but yes, that would be great. And that's one of our initiatives is we want to put COAs on the blockchain. And then once we do that for chain of custody to authenticate results, to make sure there's no tampering, then the next phase of that, maybe next year, will be payments, so that as soon as you create a rule, as soon as it results, you get paid.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
again, it's more, I'm oversimplifying it. It's much more complicated than that. But the COA, which is the certificate of analysis, is something that's almost used like a currency. I mean, most merchant,
Mhm.
in fact, all of merchant services, your banks, investors, definitely your buyers, whoever those are in the supply chain, they all ask for the COA.
Mhm.
And that's the first thing. So,
Mhm.
until we have uniformity, it's tough because there is a lot of fraud.
Mhm. I mean, I have an Excel spreadsheet and a printer, so I could make a COA, right? And those are the horror stories that you hear. Being in the industry for a decade, there was a test lab one time, and part of the QC of a business is they had to come and tour it, and the guy couldn't do it, and they ended up finding out, like tracking down this guy. He was just a guy in an apartment with a printer and a thing, and he would just sort of fill out. He sort of had a template, kind of massage the terpenes a little bit. $500 a pop. That's real, right?
China likes to fake your COA.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Holly, if you were gonna sum up in a little chunk of phrase, how would you identify the Delta 8 dilemma? What is the Delta 8 dilemma?
So, ironically, I think it was the perfect storm with three things.
Okay.
So you have the guys in Kentucky. Anybody here part of that promised to buy out of the field from the farmers there at a
So these are
certain-
the carpetbaggers, and they're not just from Kentucky. They hit Oregon hard too. So these are the
So,
carpetbaggers
but-
that come around and sell you
Yeah.
magic beans.
There
and
were
say,
three in
mhm.
Kentucky that promised forward contracts, and they misspent their money. They went bankrupt, so they defaulted. Kentucky, as a state, does not require those types of people to have bonds in case they go bankrupt to make sure the farmer stays whole. We in Florida do require that.
Mhm.
Then that happened, so you default. You've got all these farmers with all this biomass on the market. Then U.S. Bank decided they were going to get into merchant processing and jumped in, was just doing gangbusters. And I am a retired banker. So I sat back and went, oh no, I see a problem coming. They haven't mitigated their risk. Their salespeople are out doing bad things. 2 months later, what did they do? Shut it down with no notice overnight. I had people here in Florida that were out $1 million in an industry that's you can't borrow from. So now you add that. So now it's hit the retail. Now it's hit the manufacturers. Now it's hit the farmers. Then the third one was we're not paying attention to our consumer in the medical program. They wanted a lighter version of a product. So when they woke up at night, they didn't feel groggy, drunk, wake up in the morning feeling that. They wanted 5 milligrams, a softer relaxation. So the MMTCs, in my personal opinion, were not paying attention to their consumer. First time ever in Florida, the registry's kind of staying straight. So you add those three things together, and the cannabis industry is creative. They created a product. And I do believe that's why we got it.
And I think
Um,
further, it's because, and it's not about so much Florida. We're in Florida right now,
Right.
but Delta 8 is a international phenomenon, certainly nationwide phenomenon, and it is at its peak in jurisdictions that prohibit cannabinoid medicine from being available to people, whether that's medical or recreational. And so prohibition breeds
Absolutely.
a way. It's going to find a way. And I
Right.
think in Florida, I think you summed it up really well. But so that's how we got here. What's the dilemma? What's the problem, Masha, with Delta 8?
So right now, Delta 8 is banned in, I think, 20 states. So,
Including Oregon, where meth, by the way, is decriminalized. So pocket full of meth, yes. Delta 8 vape pen, no. Just
Isn't that
sit on
weird?
that. Sit on that.
So I'm going to share one inside thing with you guys. And as a state regulator, we all get together and talk to each other. We reach out for help from each other. You want to know why most states have banned it? They don't have the staff. And it's delegated to departments that maybe have 5 or 10 people. They're overwhelmed.
Because it approached the market through the USDA, through hemp, where there wasn't any plan for regulation or oversight over anything psychoactive. And I think that pivots really back
Well,
nicely to Masha.
There wasn't anything planned with the Farm Bill past cultivation,
No.
if you think about it and read the Farm Bill. So Florida took it a step further. We're one of 3 states that really manage it the way we do. But it's just creativity in the industry based on demand.
Well, and there's a lot of demand. So
There's a
like,
huge
I mean,
amount
it's
of
like
demand.
60% of our business right now. And the thing is, so again, in Florida, we have the highest standard. So other than just testing that it's below 0.3% total THC, which is total THC is THC plus THCA times 0.8777. So it's not even actual, it's like potential of what it could be. Has to be below 0.3, but Delta 8 is a cannabinoid that it works with both the CB1 and the CB2 receptors, whereas THC works with CB1, CBD works with CB2. So you've got this interesting product where it kind of gets you high, but you're not confused. So you have this, it's a relief, but you're not intoxicated. So and it is a naturally occurring cannabinoid, but just in very small quantities. It was identified in Israel by Meshulam in 1962. So we've known about it for a long time. It's
And there have been studies coming from Israel with
lot of
the
studies.
medical effectiveness, which are similar, within the same Venn diagram, overlapping with Delta 9 and other cannabinoid medicine, but unique to Delta 8 in medical purposes and research from the 60s.
And with the testing, what we've realized is, without getting like too into it, so if it runs on it's a liquid chromatography, LCMS machine. So if we test 22 cannabinoids, so THC, CBD, CBG, Delta 8, and there's a method to test for that. So what we realized is the way we used to run the machine, say it took 9 minutes to test Delta 8. But if we ran the machine for 20 minutes, then we could see the peaks between Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10.
Because they're
they're very similar.
You guys
They're
probably know.
isomers, yeah.
But if you see the THC molecule, the little carboxyl group is on number 9 of the chain, and on Delta 8, it's on number 8. It's like they just scooted this guy over. So those peaks that she's talking about overlap unless they increase the resolution of the testing. And so the technology has to catch up with what's going on. I'm interested, Justin, do you treat all hemp-derived cannabinoid businesses the same, whether it's Delta 8, now Delta 9? I bet that puts a bee in the governor's bonnet. Delta 9 THC derived from hemp. Those guys.
So as far
Do you
as
treat all those businesses the same?
yeah, so as from a merchant services perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Delta 8 and Delta 10 kind of fall under the same category. They have-
HHC, THCP,
so they have to have the COAs on their website for e-commerce.
THCO acetate. Do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem here is that it's not the Delta 8 dilemma, it's Delta 8 and friends.
Sure.
Delta
sure.
8 and friends.
Yeah.
And they're not all created equal. Anybody here know about THCP? Little goes a long way. That's my story. And then what do we do? How quickly, Masha, do you have to develop standards anticipating what's going to be synthesized next?
Well, it's very quickly. So the new one is HHC, which is a hexohydrocannabinol, and it is found in small quantities in the seeds and the plants, but then it's through a chemical conversion process that it's made using metals like palladium and platinum. Those metals are not in the original panel, that we test, the compliance panel. So we now have to, it's that, okay, we can't responsibly race to the market and say, oh, we're just doing potency for HHC. We have to say, oh, okay, well, talk to manufacturers. How is it made? What are the metals? Like, what do we now know? And we have to add to our testing scope. But this is so new, even that part's not required yet because the market is moving so fast. And good makers may not test for that. They'll do the bare minimum. That's it. So that's where we really have to
Or
stay.
what if they want to test for it, but they come to you and they say, we want to test for palladium. We know we use that as a catalyst.
Right.
That's the
Then
function.
we add it to our testing
But
scope.
you say, I don't have the panel for that, or I don't have a
But-
process for that.
We do now, so
Right.
we're working on it. So,
But sometimes
yes,
our
sometimes you
customers
don't,
are
right.
ahead of
And-
where we are.
and they drive, they'll ask us, and then we will create, if there's a business case, of course. And obviously, it's safety. It's all about safety and purity,
Mhm.
So we want to make sure the consumer is getting and the patient is getting the safest product that there is. And beyond potency, of course, it needs to be compliant, but everybody's like so hooked on THC that it's almost like the tail wagging the dog. There's so many other things. I also want to say Delta 8 by itself, I've seen so many combinations. Like there's Delta 8 and Delta 10 products that are amazing. There's a lot of one-to-one. True Leaf, which is an MMTC, they probably have the biggest market share. They've had a Delta 8 1-to-1 Delta 8 THC CBD product in a vape for a long time. But they haven't a really long time probably. And there's just, because of the lack of education and there's just not as much promotion, people see, it's got a low THC, but it's got all these other cannabinoids and it's a chemovar. So we have to look at everything, the terpenes, the flavonoids, all the other things. And there's just this false, there's this just myth that it's only THC potency that's the most important thing, but there's just so many other things.
Holly, how is legislation written, or do you have to constantly adapt it when these minor synthesized? So some of these are minor cannabinoids. They exist, to your point, they exist in small amounts in the plant naturally, but then we can also synthesize them in larger amounts. And some of them are not minor cannabinoids. They don't exist in the plant and they're fully synthesized. It's my understanding. So and as they are added, how do you list those in regulation? How do you watch over all of those as they come up?
So great question. First of all, I'll go back to Civics 101. As the elected official creates statute, and in our statute, both in the Farm Bill and in the state of Florida, synthesized is illegal. Anything synthesized is illegal. Please know that. If it doesn't naturally occur in the plant, we're not going to allow it in Florida. Next, then the state statute is written, it's passed by our elected officials, it's given to a state employee to regulate and implement and write rules on. Think of the statute as the outline of the book. The rules are the chapters about the detail of what's in that book. So we in the state of Florida have had the same issue that you're talking about here, trying to stay ahead of the industry. We have done a pretty good job keeping ahead. Where we change it is in rule, and because the statute is the broad strategic outlook of the industry, so we go in and adapt in rule. But again, the statute prohibits synthesized.
And do you have a list somewhere that has the allowed minor cannabinoids and the disallowed synthesized?
We do not. The rule we go by is if it occurs naturally in the plant, you can have it. If it does not, it's not allowed.
If it occurs naturally in the plant, like Delta 8,
Right.
but I'm making it out of CBD isolate,
Okay, that's a great question.
can I have that? Can I do that?
Well, if you just told me you're synthesizing it, I'm going to tell you no.
But can
So-
we be real for a minute?
Yeah.
Nobody's extracting Delta 8.
How do you prove that in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt? What test exists to prove that? This is
I'm
the
not proving it
hours-
to anybody about anything.
Right.
I'm just
This
saying.
is the hours my group spent on this because
Yeah.
as a state regulator, I get dinged. I get really annoyed at this one. This is one of my hot buttons. You're not regulating the deltas. Oh, yes, I am. How do you know I'm not regulating them? Please never approach your regulator or state employee with an assumption. Ask them the question first of what they're doing, how they're doing it. So we do regulate it. We do stop sales. We do test products. We have a testing lab. But we sat around with lawyers, regulators, biologists, chemists, pharmacologists, you name it. There were many of us, almost 20 sitting around the table. I bet we spent over 100 hours on this. How do you prove when you start to go after these companies that this was made chemically? There is no test that our labs or our people could come up with to prove that.
So then what is the, and I'm asking you because you're here, not because it was your decision,
Right.
but maybe you have some insight into it.
Right.
What is the point of having a rule that you're describing as essentially meaningless?
Well, I don't think it's meaningless. Why do you
Okay.
think it's meaningless?
Because we know that there's not enough Delta 8 in a
You
plant
don't know
to
that.
produce the, okay, I'm pretty sure. I mean, help me, Masha. Do you
Again,
see?
I want
but
you
but
to
you
prove
see,
that to me.
um,
And this is the debate we had around this table.
have you
for
ever,
hours.
Masha, have you ever come across flour that's has an equivalent amount of native Delta 8 to anywhere near a native Delta 9 content
I have
or
not-
CBD? Have you ever seen Delta 8 in a ratio that would be useful for extraction on any sort of scale?
Not yet, but we haven't seen it all, right? This is like,
Sure.
we're not even, this is the tip of the, we're like at the tiny tip.
And I'm not challenging your work, Holly. I'm
Technically,
asking,
I know,
why not
but-
allow something that clearly it is?
Because statute prohibits synthesized. That word would have to be taken out.
I understand.
So we call it it's derived, right? It's
Mhm.
derived. So
Mhm.
it's derived through a chemical conversion. We're still starting with CBD.
Okay.
So technically, they could tell me, no, I made isolate. It's expensive, but that's how I did it. Okay. Well, all
Okay.
right. There, again, there's no test out there to prove different. Watch the
Mhm.
lawsuits that are going on in the individual states.
Mm-hmm.
Would I like a better answer as a regulator?
I mean, I think
Oh,
the start
please,
would be, I
yes.
think the start would be a COA of the flour that produced that. I mean, it's all lot, it's
Our
all
statute
through
doesn't
metric.
require that.
It's interesting. It's all,
Well,
Again, as a state regulator writing rules, I have to follow statute.
sure.
After I write statute, or after I follow the statute, write my rules, then it gets sent through a committee called JAPSI. Zach, what does JAPSI stand for? Do you remember? Thank you, Maria. Joint Administrative Procedural Committee. That is a state office that then looks at our rules and reads the statute and says, yeah, you followed the statute, you're staying in your lane, or nope, you didn't follow the statute, you're not staying in your lane. They smack your hand and you got to go back to the drawing board. So that committee is who I have to worry about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a
Sure.
lot of influence on how
Sure.
we interpreted this and how you
Sure.
interpreted what you just asked.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're tough, aren't they, Zach?
Masha, talk to me about do you know of the cannabinoids that I kind of rattled off? So we're THCV, THCP, HHC, THCOA. Of those, which of those are derived and which of those are synthesized? And forgive me if I'm getting the language wrong. Please correct me.
no, that's correct. So THCOA,
Uh-huh.
which is also incorrectly called THCO. It's actually THCOA. It goes through a chemical conversion process and uses acetic anhydride, and so that's synthesized.
Okay.
And it's made similar to it's the equivalent to what aspirin is to salicylic acid
Okay.
when it's acetated. This is a scary one. It's the equivalent to what morphine is to heroin when it's acetated. So this is THCOA. It's THC acetated. So it's a tetrahydra as opposed to HHC, which is a hexahydra. So yeah, that's fully synthesized, and Florida's not supporting it. We do have, we're testing for it, and we developed a safety panel so that they can't just do the potency. They have to test for the acetic anhydride because it's a very powerful reactor. And if there's any of it left at all, it's dangerous. But again, that's just what we know now. And so 2 weeks from now, there's going to be something else. So And again, we're not the police because we're doing the best that we know with the science to say you shouldn't test just potency. You should test it with the safety panel. We're going to do the same thing with HHC. Test it with these metals. Don't just test potency. But at the end of the day, they're our client. They should know that people need to use safe products. So
Yeah. Well, and frankly, it sounds like people are testing products and getting a COA that are not allowed in Florida. So good on them.
they
Hopefully.
can't sell them in Florida. I mean, we
They
can
sell them in
test.
other states.
Yeah, they could sell them in other states, right?
So
But
you can manufacture these things in Florida, you just can't sell them in Florida? Is the regulation, is the enforcement at the point of retail or at the point of manufacture?
Actually, it's both in Florida for THC.
So I can manufacture things that I can't sell in Florida, so if you came into my lab, I could tell you what I was doing and you don't care?
No.
Okay.
The opposite.
Yeah.
no, you can't manufacture or sell
Right,
it.
you cannot manufacture.
You can't manufacture,
No,
so
you
you can't
cannot.
sell it into another state?
No.
Okay.
No, you can't manufacture in Florida and you can't sell it in Florida.
Right.
That's
And you
it.
can't manufacture in Florida to sell somewhere else? Right, got it.
You got what Masha said is so important. These chemical compounds that they're using, I know they're out there using them. Would you put that in your body? That's what we worry about at FDAX more than anything else. She said potency isn't the thing they worry about. We don't worry about potency that much. We worry about the residuals. And oh my gosh, we worry about it a lot. And I have to say to people, buyer beware. Be careful what you put in your body. What she said, I can't stress enough.
And there are really good products, though.
Yes,
there are
that are clean.
that are clean. And so
Mhm.
you just have to make sure you're using a good manufacturer, a reputable brand that has the QR code on the packaging.
Yeah.
You look at the QR code, it should lead to the certificate of analysis. That certificate of analysis should say all of the residual solvents, pesticides, everything that they test for. It should be there. And if it's not, just don't do it. I mean, it's not worth it.
And if you're ever concerned as a consumer, you can email us, you can email them, ask questions. Yeah.
It's and most of the things that you're testing for that you would find are the same products. None of this is processed in some sort of exotic, amazing way where they only do cannabis. This is all standard processing in food, beverage, edible oil. Everything, all the processed food that we eat has been processed with these same processes, these same catalysts. Most of our pharmaceutical medication has been. So it's not like people are doing something in cannabis that's so egregious that, boy, you have to test it before you let it pass your lips. It's that we should be asking for this level of testing for everything we consume. Let's find out how many pesticides are in our glass of wine this afternoon that we're all going to enjoy, because you wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it if you had that tested, right? So it's not so much that just the reason that they're using palladium and that's horrifying. It's that you have to use it in a responsible way and be a process chemist, and those things can be eliminated from the process effectively, right? Talk to me a little bit, Justin. I want to go back kind of micro level again. We're talking about, I mean, I've been in Florida for like 3 days. And I could drive Holly crazy with all the things I've seen that apparently I wasn't supposed to see in gas. I was going to say gas station across the street, but most of it's downstairs too. There's way better stuff downstairs than in the gas station across the street, I'll tell you what. But I know. So Justin, how do you protect financial institutions? How do you provide these services, payment processing services, to businesses that are operating at the very edge of the law, which is still not a federal law, it's just a state law, and it's complicated? How do you protect banks and still offer the consumers those services? How do you buffer that?
Sure. So while the banks and the processors really dictate to us what we can and cannot do. You know what I mean? So by nature, we're a merchant services company. You know what I mean? So the processors really, and there's so as far as a merchant account goes, there's low risk, which is TSYS, Elevon when they were in the game, and then you have high risk processors, right? So they really tell us the rules about what can and cannot be written on the platforms. So as far as, and Delta 8 right now is obviously a high-risk merchant account. So
That means expensive if you want an account.
not always.
That's code.
Not-
That's code for really expensive.
I mean, not always, but yes, it depends on who your provider is. Some people try and build in a lot of profit. We don't do that at NaturePay. But one of their big directives to us at the processors is the COAs have to be on the websites. Yep. The COAs have to, that's so as far as processors go, that's one of the big, I have a lot of companies that don't have COAs, because we work around the country with a lot of, and Delta 8 is such a new, for the merchant services side too, it's such a new area. We come from the dispensary and delivery company side where we've got that figured out. We know how to be compliant, follow the KYC, follow the Bank Secrecy Act, FinCEN, and stuff like that. So Delta 8 is still a new arena for merchant services. So more rules will come down from the processors as it starts to mature in the market. But that's one of the key pieces right now is making sure those COAs are.
Thank you.
Does everybody in here know what KYC means when he talks about banking? Know your customer. Let your banker know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, let your credit union representative know what you're doing. But if you're doing okay right now and your banker doesn't know, I would have a backup plan before I let my banker know what I was doing. It's just, that comes from a lot of scarred
I
years.
had one thing
Yes.
on his side. So do any of you in here make Delta 8 manufacture product and send it outside the state of Florida?
Sure.
If you do, be very careful not to send it into one of the states that has banned it. And because as a former banker, I was talking to a consultant the other day, and this one surprised me. He said the consensus from auditors is that if you do that and you collect money from that state vendor that it's illegal, you've now committed money laundering and fraud. So be careful, just FYI.
Because we are really far away from decriminalization. We are really far away from having any sort of legitimate access to plant medicine as a people in this country. We have tens of thousands of people who are locked up and in jail for exactly what we're talking about, and it is silly pants. And it is your job to register to vote and to be loud and to be annoying and to know who your sheriff is and know who your representative is. And when somebody whose email address ends in .gov says, ask me a question, get on her and ask her a question. If you're in Florida and you don't have her card in your pocket or know who she is and that she's telling you she has town hall meetings and she has things and she's trying to engage with you, then I don't want to hear it when this goes sideways, you guys.
Listen,
Because it goes sideways.
Yeah,
I'm from California. It goes sideways.
I brought on our June town hall meeting, I brought the DEA from somebody from Washington, D.C., and the head of the program for USDA on. That's the kind of speakers we're bringing in. So, and they entertain questions from you guys. And they said, we'll answer any question you want to ask us.
Do you have one for us?
Speaking on that, that's one of the points I wanted to hear about, that meeting with the DEA, where they said clearly this is not governed by the crime bill, it's just excluded in the territory of Marco, right? Can you speak on that for a moment? Is that still maintain behavior
Yeah.
you're getting?
Absolutely. And the follow-up to that, and I speak to them on a regular basis. I work with them on a regular basis. I work with Homeland Security. I get all kinds of calls, narcotics officers. There are some bad violators, and sadly, this region is one of them I have a problem with constantly. So yes, they've continued to maintain that. Their comment was, we've got a problem with meth, heroin, morphine,
Pharmaceutical
opioids,
opioids,
fentanyl.
prescription opioids
So, yeah, and he said, we have thousands of people dying every day.
from
We've got a
prescription
crisis.
opioids.
Right. And nobody's dying from cannabis. We could care less. That's
true.
the least of our problems. We're not going to rate them. Just stay in your lane.
Do they also share your feelings on Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta and all of those.
He said it on the town hall meeting. They are not on the CSA.
Just watch out for that money laundering
And
tap.
Yeah, the other thing I will tell you, and that's because of the state laws, not the federal law. Those are state laws that have caused that. And again, we go back to, well, why did that state ban it? Literally, I was talking to one of the states out west, and we were telling her how we did it here and why. And she goes, well, that makes sense. That's probably how it should be done. But I'm one person. Bam, illegal. And I said, whoa, Sarah, wait a minute. You're going to get sued and you're going to lose. And the state's going to have to pay to defend that. She said, I don't care. That'll be over in 2 years. I'll be gone.
There's also a tremendous amount of pressure from giant corporate operators who do not want anyone to have access to cannabinoids that they do not make. These are the same companies that are shutting down your ability to grow your own medicine at home. In California, they're proposing it to be a felony again to have more than 6 plants. And if that doesn't feel like, you guys, what it is with the cannabis, somebody shot the fishing hook out there and we grabbed it and ran with it, and they gave us a lot of line, didn't they? Gave us a lot of line. And if you're feeling it and you're in this industry, you just got that hook snapped right back. And now we're reeling it in. And now we have 20 states that aren't allowing minor cannabinoids. We still have states where there's prohibition, and it's like 1965 back there for a lot of reasons. And it feels like we're not progressing and moving forward. It feels like we're getting stuck in this regulation that's missing the point that prohibition doesn't work. And Masha, speak to me about that.
Well, I mean, the thing that gives me hope is the studies. So research is starting. So I do know that, so an IRB study, which is it's an institutional review board, it's been formally designated to review this research in accordance to FDA regulations. So this IRB, it has the authority to approve or require modifications or disprove research. So that's what an IRB is. So USF did get a preliminary approval for an IRB for Delta 8 to test it for post-operative pain management utilizing Delta 8. So that's really exciting. One of our clients, and I can mention them, is Garen or Mark here, no. Well, New Gen 3, so it's a partnered producer, and we're using so we've tested the Delta 8, that will be, you also need to have a standard material to do the research with. So there is a study that is approved. Does it have enough funding? Not yet, but it's still, that's a big deal for there to be an approved study. I was working with Dr. Michelle Weiner and Dr. Denise Vidot, and we were trying to get just a CBD nano study approved by UF. And, we had, obviously a principal investigator that's so experienced, everything was outlined, everything was it was pristine. They're like, nope, wouldn't approve it. So this is a step in the right direction for Delta 8. I know that there are some studies with veterans that are happening right now, but if it's not an IRB, then the FDA is not looking at it. And what happened with Charlotte's Web, the Stanley brothers, the guys from Colorado that spent years and years and years, they have so many successful
Specific to treatment of children with epilepsy.
And research and all of that, and they spent months with the FDA, and then the FDA won't recognize CBD, and that's a whole other topic, but if we had national guidelines, right, then we could have national, people wouldn't be so confused what's happening from state to state. It could be the same way for testing across the country, and then the FDA would have to consider it and take it seriously, but that's just not, if Charlotte's Web couldn't do it, next thing they're going to do is they're going to say the government owns the patent to CBD and all analogs and all the products have to be taken off. That would suck.
Oh, come on, they'd never
No.
do that,
Oh, they'd
Masha.
never do that.
We've got a question.
I'm a lawyer in the space, and I put 10 lawyers in the room, and all 10 would give a different answer.
Yeah, but in fairness, all 10 lawyers would do that on any topic.
That's true.
So I feel like
Yeah.
it's not fair.
And I'm gonna answer those. But the point being that, like, and I've had this debate with other lawyers, whether or not you are regulatory, whether or not DA naturally derived could be synthesized.
Do you, Holly, how do you,
I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that where Holly's going, that, it's not, there's
Does-
no way to prove it, but at the same time.
does the language say extracted anywhere?
But we see this,
No.
not just Florida, in other states, this is what defines synthetic or synthesized.
Hmm.
And I think we remember a year or two ago.
They didn't
there was
define
some FDA or DEA opinion of Arkansas or something.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone immediately went, oh, that means DEA is saying DEA is legal. Well, no, that's not what it says, by a long shot. So doesn't it just come down to the fact that there is, and if it's a DEA or an FDA question, there is no clear definition of, well, like you said at the beginning, DEA is a naturally occurring cannabinoid. But if it's changed, does that mean it's synthesized?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Masha, is there, or Holly?
It goes back to what I said. Prove to me in a court of law
Yeah.
that this was synthesized. And so, yeah, we didn't just talk amongst ourselves. We went out and talked to lawyers we knew might come after us and sue us. And I did feel, as the program manager and a state employee, I had a fiduciary responsibility to the state to spend the money wisely, the program to do what was best for the people in the program and for consumers. And that's quite honestly where we ended up and why we ended up where we did. Maybe that on.
Mm-hmm.
Would the
So-
problem, would the issue be clearer if DEA came out with a clear? this is what's
Yes,
synthesized?
absolutely. But they're not going to.
No.
Neither is the FDA and neither is the USDA. I've asked them.
But it looks like the same chemical structure, though. And I'm not a chemist. I don't know if there's any chemists in the room, but it's, yeah, of course.
Well, I mean,
Can you tell
the
synthesized?
isolate form.
Can you tell D8, the molecular structure, if it's synthesized or naturally derived, if you're looking at it?
Well, I mean, the D8 is a molecule.
Yeah, it's,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, you
Right.
can't.
So you can't tell.
But technically, your cannabis doesn't make THC.
Right.
There's no enzyme called THC.
Every time we decarboxylate, we're synthesizing something. Huh?
These are the kind of rabbit holes we went down. And
When I just said it.
yes, yes.
Whatsoever.
I mean,
We've got a question right up front.
Where do you draw that line?
Right.
Something largely arbitrary, when the plant is, it has
Yes.
enzymes, extracellular, make these chemicals.
I had to go back and relearn organic chemistry. My head hurt.
So, we've been live streaming this and you're getting the most responses, right? The
Nice.
the moderators get the thumbs up.
I should be quiet.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that Holly serves at the pleasure of the Secretary of Agriculture, the Commissioner of Agriculture. How many of these rules might change come November of this year? Or
So what she's talking about is the commissioner that appointed me, her term is up. It's a 4-year term. So there'll be a reelection and she is not rerunning for agriculture commissioner. I can't answer that. Wilton Simpson and another lady, and I apologize, I do not know her name, are running. And the program's up and running successfully. I can't imagine they're going to change a lot. But there is policy set by the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I do go to her saying, here's what we're looking at with this program. What policy do you want us to follow? And she will give us input. So I wish I could answer that question, but I can't. And
Is that an appointed person or an elected person in agriculture?
it's the department, the Commissioner of Agriculture is one of 6 statewide elected positions in the state of Florida,
And people get to vote on that?
statewide.
And so people get to vote on that statewide. If you're in Florida and you're able to, please register to vote and know your candidates.
Is there any intent to expand the list of active ingredients? Right now, we just have THC and CBD listed, to your point about Delta 8, a formulation that includes Delta 8 alongside it. As somebody who works for an MSP, see that issue as well, making the value statement.
So I'm not sure I understand your question.
Adding like the D8 percentage to the.
Oh,
required amount of
the-
THC and CBD
That what, the percentage of D8 that's allowed in a product? Yeah, no, we're not. a
Are you
fan of
prohibited to,
listing.
are you prohibited to print extra information, extra testing information on the packaging?
No, they're not.
Oh.
Well, but you would have to get a variance from the OMMU. So the labels have to look a certain way. There's, certain analytes are listed. At one point, it was only THC. Now I see that they are listing THC and CBD. But the regulations say potency 11, right? They've got to test for 11 cannabinoids at the minimum. So if there's other ones present, they'll show up on the COA. The patient, unfortunately, is at a huge disadvantage because they've got to fight to see that COA. It's not readily available. So if it's behind the counter, great. If not, they make them look it up. But on the label itself, only THC and CBD, not even terpenes are listed.
That's just for the medical marijuana
That's true.
program.
That's just for
The hemp program is different.
Right.
So you can print the extra information on
Is it a
it.
quick question?
Yeah, so how does the Delta 8 testing become, well, like, what's required? Is it different than for the medical? Or like, how do they differ between them? And is that in the statute right now?
Yes, each statute, the one for the medical program, the one for the hemp, has its own testing requirements. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Does everybody in here know what MMTC stands for? Medical Marijuana Treatment Center. It's the licensees, the 22 licensees we have in the state that are allowed to dispense medical cannabis.
I think that the other thing that we could have called this panel is the thankless jobs panel because I'm never happy with my COA. I'm never happy with regulation and I'm never happy with my bank, and that's cannabis. And so, I mean, knowing, like, yes, we have smart people who are in these positions that are difficult and they're willing to come here and be heckled for an hour. And I just want to give the greatest gratitude to this panel of amazing people. And I hope you just join me in thanking them. Could you take a picture of us? Oh, and we're done. We're ready for the next. You guys can come on.
Nicely. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Ardolino, and if you're here to learn about how medicinal mushrooms and cannabis can help your pet, you're in the right place. Awesome. I'm going to see if I can get this to work. I'm Angela Ardolino. I have been a medical marijuana advocate since 2015 when I discovered it for my own health, and it changed my life. I sold my business, threw myself into the industry, and got invited to University of Vermont School of Medicine's inaugural class to study medical cannabis for its therapeutic uses in biology. And that's where I learned animals have the endocannabinoid system like we did. And because I already have a rescue farm called Fireflake Farm, I also have a retail business that does holistic grooming and natural and holistic and integrative vet services. So this is where I decided to go into the industry, and I've been practicing medical cannabis on pets, farm, every animal you could possibly think of, I have used it on for the past 6 years with great success. I'm going to bring up my biggest success story first because I'm breaking records now treating my Doberman Nina here, who was diagnosed in July of 2020 with osteosarcoma, which is one of the most aggressive cancers a dog can get. Most, it's like 1 in every 9 dogs, large breed dogs, is going to get it. We have a chief. I also have a full spectrum hemp extract company for pets. Oh, should I hold that one? Okay. Which I developed because, of course, when I got out of school and went to find a full spectrum hemp extract for pets, there wasn't any. If I did find something, it was usually a human grade product that a company slapped on a pet label, and it contained ingredients that were actually harmful for pets and not safe for pets. So I ended up developing my own full spectrum hemp extract for dogs. So I have a whole line. So with Nina here, osteosarcoma is a bone cancer, but how it kills your dogs is that it spreads to the rest of their body super fast. It metastasizes. So it's a hereditary genetic cancer, so there really isn't much you can do to prevent it. However, your choices in convention are amputate the leg, radiation, chemotherapy. $15,000 later, your dog is still dead and suffered that whole entire time. I elected not to do that since I'm a medical cannabis expert, and I'm treating this dog with only a full spectrum hemp extract. I do give her FICO every night, 10 milligrams of THC every single night for the past 20 months, and it has not killed her. So anyone who says THC is dangerous or will kill a dog, they have no idea what they're talking about. This dog is alive and thriving because of THC. My other 2 components to her protocol are turkey tail medicinal mushroom extract, which has also already been proven to kill cancer, and a ketogenic diet. Because as we know, our immune system lives in our gut, just like our pets. So we want to support their immune system and their gut microbiome. So feeding her an appropriate raw ketogenic diet where we're starving the cancer and not feeding it is also playing a big role. So I wanted to start with this because the only other case that we have found is a dog who's made it to 18 months and then passed. The cancer spread. It's actually got another type of cancer and died. So we have Nina here who is at 20 months and who is still thriving, and she's considered a geriatric dog. She's loving life, and I want everyone to know that what medical cannabis does for us, it can do for our pets too. So I wanted to make sure I got that success story out first. Nina, my big girl. Oh, if you want more information or my protocol, my website's angelaarlino.com/fuckcancer. And my full protocol that I did with our chief vet, Dr. Zach Pilasoff, is on there with links, information, everything you could possibly know. So if you know anyone whose dog is suffering from cancer, it's a great starting point. So, as you know, or maybe you didn't know, All animals have an endocannabinoid system. Birds, lizards, all of them. Anything with a vertebrae has an endocannabinoid system, so therefore they can benefit from the medicine like we do. Everything that it does for us, it does for animals. So they have CB1 and CB2 receptors throughout their entire body like we do. But what's really cool about dogs in particular is that we already have a study that they have more receptors than we do, which is why they're so sensitive to the medicine. But that's also why it is so good for them and so easy to treat an animal with a full spectrum hemp extract, or a dog in particular. So we've already proven that. So that's why dogs are more sensitive to THC than we are, and will get high a lot quicker than we do. But the good thing is that CBD dampens the effects of THC. So if your dog ever does, or any of your pets does get into your stash, give them a full spectrum hemp extract, and CBD will actually dampen the effects. Also, we have some studies that show that as animals, specifically dogs, age, you have less receptors. So it is also showing this, that just like as we age, we have deficiencies in our endocannabinoid system, and so do our pets. We also need to realize that just like humans, as if we're talking about using it medicinally, that we want a full spectrum product. Everything that is out there that is research that is helping with cancer, is stopping seizures, it is all done on a full spectrum hemp or a full spectrum extract, whether it be from hemp or from marijuana. So just like us, animals need that full spectrum. They need that oil that is extracted from the flower so that you get all the medicinal benefits from the terpenes, flavonoids, fatty acids, proteins, all the good stuff that's in that flower. Those of you who don't know, full spectrum means it has all of those ingredients, including the major cannabinoids. And stay away from a broad spectrum or an isolate product for your pets, because they won't do what you probably are wanting it to do. What's great about animals is that most research that's done on humans, they use on animals. So I get a lot of people who say, well, there's no research done on animals proving that it's safe. Well, actually it is, because most of it's done on an animal for humans. I don't know if any of you, those of you know, I don't feel like I need to prove to you guys that THC is safe for animals, right? Okay, because I'm at a cannabis event. When I'm at a pet event talking about cannabis, I feel like I have to constantly go, it will not kill your animal. It will not kill your animal. So I'm glad I could skip that part. But yes, it's very safe for them. Works for osteoarthritis. Already done a study. Epilepsy, everything that it does for us. Cancer, receptors. This is also a very cool fact about dogs, is they have 3 layers of skin, and each layer of skin has both the CB1 and CB2 receptors. So we have dog salves, topicals, that you can actually put on a tumor and shrink tumors. We've been doing it for 6 years now, so it's pretty cool. What is this one? Cushing's disease, which is an adrenal disease, actually being reversed. What's really fun is we get patients, clients that call and go, hey, my dog was taking this for his cancer, but is it possible that it's helping with his Cushing's? Now, I'm not a veterinarian, so literally, I Googled what Cushing's disease was. Well, Cushing's disease is when there is a tumor on the adrenal gland or the pituitary gland. So what was happening was that the full spectrum hemp extract was shrinking those tumors. Therefore, the symptoms of Cushing's disease was going away. So that's really cool. I love constantly, we're treating for one thing and we're watching other things happen, and watch these dogs go from decrepit, not getting up and walking, to being puppy-like again. It's a beautiful sight. Super safe and awesome for horses. Horses have so many issues. Of course, it's awesome antioxidant neuroprotectant, as you know from the wonderful patent that was owned by the United States government. It's also in dogs, they have done research where they're finding it expressed in the GI tract. So it's great for dogs who are having GI issues, leaky gut, which most dogs do. And here's just one of the wonderful lists of all the things that could help your pet with using a full spectrum hemp extract, and of course, you too. But that's why hemp is so wonderful for dogs in specific, because they are so sensitive to it. However, if you're dealing with a deadly cancer like I am with my Doberman, I absolutely would suggest adding THC. So, people who are concerned about cannabis toxicity versus cannabis intoxicity, this is a 12-year-old pug who had injured her leg, and we had the opportunity to film her static ataxia, which is a dog high. And every dog is different, so you never know when they're going to react this way. But if you see in the first video, she's kind of going like this, kind of a little bit in circles. None of this is dangerous. You can see when she's walking in the kitchen in that middle video, she kind of gets off balance. And the last video of her running down the hall is the owner thrilled because she hadn't gotten up and moved for like a week. So that was just her showing how her 12-year-old was feeling friggin' fantastic. Of course, this happens the first time they get the medicine. After that, they literally it normalizes and it doesn't happen anymore. Nina, when I first started giving her the THC, would pee the bed at night, which she had never done. And I remember that CBD dampens the effects, so I'll actually give her a lot of CBD with her THC, a full spectrum hemp extract, and now she doesn't pee the bed anymore. So sometimes, even if they have a reaction, none of them being dangerous, it doesn't stay that way. These are some of the other side effects, all of them being very mild, especially when you compare them to any pharmaceutical or a painkiller or anything that's available out there for pets. Dosing, every dog is different. Every animal is different. So we have suggestions based on what research has shown us. You can't give them too much. You could give them, if it's a pure product with a COA, showing you exactly what's in that bottle, they could drink the whole bottle and they maybe have some diarrhea and sleep really, really good, but it will not hurt them. So there's a couple different ways that you can administer. Best way is to make sure you always shake up the bottle because it's a natural product. Lift their lip up and squeeze it right onto their gums. And then tell them they're a good boy. Most products, or the products we make, are nano-emulsified, so putting them on the gums makes them be absorbed into the bloodstream quicker. Topically is also a wonderful way, a salve that you could put on an actual tumor, a lump bump, or something sore. Depending on what you're treating the animal for, it would depend on what the dosage would be. So if you've got a dog that's stressed out and you just need to calm down, usually 12 milligrams of a full spectrum hemp extract will do the trick, but I've got a rescue farm and I can tell you it's all over. The 3-pound dog may need more than the 50-pound dog does. Weight has nothing to do with what they need. You basically need to give it to them and then watch and see what happens. So if you're dealing with a dog that's arthritic, what happens is that you give it to them, and if they are up and running and feeling good, you found their dose. Usually 1 dropper full, about 12 milligrams will help a dog that's suffering from arthritis. When you're dealing with cancer and autoimmune disease, seizures, we're looking more at about 40 to 60 milligrams of a full spectrum hemp extract will help them not only feel better, but give them a fighting chance. Y'all know about that. Choosing a safe product is extremely important because as you know, it's not regulated at all. And in the pet industry, if you guys think the human industry is screwed up, all the evil people go to the pet industry because they can get away with more shit. So you have to make sure that they have a COA. Every single one of my bottles have a batch number etched in, a QR code where you can scan it with your phone. It'll take you directly to the COA for what's exactly in that bottle. And what that COA tells you is what's in that bottle, making sure it's a full spectrum hemp extract, and what is not supposed to be in there. Pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, all the things that people make it the wrong way, it'll show up in that. Do not buy a product that does not have a COA matching that bottle. Cornell did a study. How many things were there? They analyzed 29 over-the-counter products for pets, and like, how many? Like none of them. Only 10 of the products were even within what they were saying was in the bottle. So what I hear on a daily basis is, I tried it, it didn't work for my dog. And I'm like, then you didn't have a full spectrum hemp extract, a pure one, because it will help your dog. It will help your pet. There's no pet that has come across in the past 6 years that we haven't been able to help one way or another. So certificate of analysis, making sure, basically, if it's good enough for a human, it's good enough for you. Just make sure that it doesn't have any weird additives or flavoring or xylitol, which kills dogs. So I like sticking with someone who is an expert in pets and animals and going with a formulation that they came up with. We explain, when you're looking at the label, of course, the label I told you about, you want to look for that where you can get to the QR code that shows you exactly what's in it. Now, I just want to share now. I don't know how much time. I feel like I'm talking so fast because I only have 30 minutes. So how much? Yes. Whew. Now I'm going to relax. Here's some success stories. And I live in Tampa now, but I kind of known as the crazy cannabis witchy lady who takes in just about any case when, the vet, most of the time an integrative or a holistic vet has given up and they're like, let's see what she can do kind of thing. This is one of my rescues, Daisy, Miss Daisy. She was a 15-year-old Beagle Black Lab mix with an MCT tumor attached to her spine on the back that we treated with a topical and a full spectrum hemp extract only every day. We did 50 milligrams of full spectrum hemp extract in the salve every day, which is about 300 milligrams of full spectrum. And this, I think, is over a 65-day period where you can actually, if you start up in the corner and go all the way down. And what people don't understand is that in this case, we watched the tumor die. We watched it turn black and ooze and completely fall off and disappear. There was like a little spot where there was an ulcer looking that we cleaned up, and the next day hair was growing out of it. She had no more cancer in her body. She also, when we got her, was dragging one of her back legs. That went away. We have video of her running around. This is what we get to see every single day with these dogs. These are some of the reviews we get in. We've been in business since 2016. 2018, when the Farm Bill, we went national, and we get wonderful stories on a daily basis from how it's helping animals. This is 2 stories on papillomas. This one, the white dog, Jolene, we actually only did a topical between her toes to get rid of it and got rid of it in 40 days. And then the one on the right, the little Maltipoo, she had that for like 10 years. And it fell off in 2 weeks when the woman started putting it. So she was treating the dog internally for Cushing's disease and putting the salve on that tumor, and it fell off in 2 weeks. So it was pretty cool because she had better luck than I did. So these are just some more wonderful things for wonderful reviews from parents that have had life-changing experiences using an all-natural full-spectrum hemp extract. And now I think I have like 5 minutes, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes? How old is she? So when dogs turn 6, 7, 8, they become senior citizens. When they're 9, 10, 11, they become geriatric. Because she's a 9-year-old with a lump on her breast, I'm going to assume that it's cancer. Don't freak out. Cancer is an age-degenerative disease. Doesn't mean it's going to kill her or take over anything, especially if you're giving her a full-spectrum hemp extract every day. I would give her at least 50 milligrams right on her gums and put a salve on it. And look at what you're feeding her. Keep toxins out of her environment, the flea and ticks. Dogs are only supposed to be vaccinated first year of life like human beings are, so no more unnecessary vaccinations. Look at what you're plugging in your wall, the candles you're burning. All those things are carcinogens that they breathe right up because they're right there on the ground. So just try to keep those out. And then look at what you're feeding her. Real food is real food is real food. What you eat is good enough for them. There's only 5 foods that they can't have that we can. And it's chocolate, raisins, grapes, onions that won't kill your dog, xylitol, chocolate. Onions are an irritant for most dogs, but it ain't going to kill them. Okay? Yes. Hi, I see your baby and he's beautiful.
Sorry I missed the first part of your talk because we're in the wrong room.
Oh,
But I have 2 situations I wanted your advice on. I noticed that you did mention psychedelics for dogs on the description. So I'm going to tell you my 2 situations which are very different and maybe you can give me some input.
Yep.
So King here was a rescue and he was 2.5. I've had him for 12 years. I think he's 15 now.
awesome.
Um,
My 15-year-old's behind you, my miniature schnauzer.
So he has a hard time walking, you know, we have to pick him up his gait. I think when he got warm, when we got out into summer last year, it caused like a type of stroke situation, which is common where the spinal cord, you know, will release some in the heat.
Mhm.
So since then, it's been a little more of a struggle. I'm currently giving him full spectrum. You know, I work for a cannabis company.
Great.
It's got COA and all that.
Great.
I'm giving him.
How many milligrams are you?
1,000 milligram bottle in 30 milliliters.
Great.
And I'm giving him 1 a day. Should I give him more? That's my first question.
And you're doing this to help with the back issue.
I want him to eat.
Is it helping? That sounds like a good amount.
I'm putting food in his mouth to get him to eat. And I'm doing a little bit of, because he's lost so much weight here recently, he has a stage 4 heart murmur.
Okay, so one of the things that I discovered was I was so busy on my geriatrics, getting rid of their cancer, helping them walk, that I didn't even think about dementia. And I lost they're both named, no, Daisy and Potato. Lost 2 of them within a 3-month period to dementia because they forget how to eat and drink. And I was at that stage. Lion's mane mushroom. Start medicinal. Now you also need to make sure medicinal mushrooms are just like cannabis. You got to make sure you're getting an extract. Afterwards, I'll tell you a brand that is a good brand to get. But medicinal mushrooms, it's not just the chopping up of the mushrooms. We have to extract the compounds out of the medicinal mushrooms before they're good for your dog, before they can get to your dog and be used. You can't just chop up a mushroom and give it to them. So right now in the pet industry, I'm watching everyone just put dried mushrooms and grind them up and go, this will work. That won't work. That has to be extracted a certain way.
I also have access to THC oil.
THC, I only give THC if I've got an aggressive cancer that I've got to get rid of and get a hold of. So giving him, you have to remember, I don't know if you saw where I showed you the study where it shows they have twice, if not 10 times more receptors than we do. So the hemp extract is enough for a dog. It's only when they've got an aggressive cancer where I'll add THC.
He does enjoy, this sounds crazy, but I don't know if he's become dependent on it, but I do smoke cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And he acts like he wants me to go in his face. It seems to have some calming and pain relief effect for him.
Well, he should be able to get the same that with with an oil.
He acts like he
enjoys when you're like,
He acts like it's food. I mean, he comes to it.
Oh yeah, my Doberman comes and asks for it. Yeah, they know.
Now, on the other side of the spectrum here with my other dog, she's aggressive. She just snarled at Lynn on the way in here. She'll pick somebody she doesn't like and she becomes very aggressive, and it's because she's scared. I know dogs. I've read all the Cesar Millar books and this and that, but she's scared is the bottom line. What kind of treatment can I give her to overcome that fear where she's more comfortable around people?
Well, I think a full spectrum hemp extract. I've got a formulation that is a full spectrum hemp extract with lavender essential oil. It's my calming formula. See, the other thing about mushrooms and other herbs and why mushrooms are so amazing is because they are adaptogens, which cannabis is also. And when you put more than one adaptogen together, they become super powerful and synergistic. So my formulations are on ailment, what they suffer from. So calming, stress, anxiety is full spectrum hemp extract, 550 milligrams and 60 ml with lavender essential oil. My arthritis one, which I developed for Odie, my old man back there, when at 9 years he stopped going up the steps because he was suffering from arthritis pain, is 550 milligrams of full spectrum hemp extract, frankincense, and turmeric. Both frankincense and turmeric have some of the same compounds that cannabis does. So they are also adaptogens. So when you put them together, you have now created a hell of a tincture. And it's actually what I take for my rheumatoid arthritis. So I make them. So the problem with chicken is that chicken is a hot protein and it's pro-inflammatory, meaning if you give your dog chicken every single day, especially an old one, it causes inflammation in the body. So see if he'll do a turkey, because turkey is not, it's a cool protein, so maybe he'll like turkey instead. Those are good. You know, they're carbohydrates, so don't give it to him, you know, all the time, especially if it's an old dog. A ketogenic diet is basically giving them no grains, no carbs, just giving them fruits, vegetables, and whole meats. Someone's like, do I have any other questions? Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Not yet. I haven't experienced psychedelic mushrooms on dogs. I mean, I've seen it's not anything dangerous. I don't know if they're more sensitive to it or not, but it doesn't hurt them or kill them or anything like it does. I wouldn't give it to them unless I knew why I was giving it to them. But I'm a strong believer in medicinal mushrooms like turkey tail, reishi. Right. Not yet, but I can't imagine. Look, I live next to a cow field in Tampa, and I go try to get my free psilocybin mushrooms from the cow pies. And every time I find a spore and I'm like, oh yeah, these are going to be good. And I watch it grow. And then when it gets to the perfect point, somebody eats them before I get to them. So I can guarantee you those animals that live out there are having a good time. Or when I see those cows and donkeys jumping up, they're probably tripping and we don't even know it. Yes. Deaf animals? Odie's deaf now. So I use a lot of sign language, but it's age related.
For me, I have a deaf cat who he gets very anxious when he wakes up, obviously, or just in general, he meows super loud and doesn't stop. Do you have any advice on it?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about incorporating a full spectrum hemp extract for an anxious animal is that it allows you to train them. It allows you to show them. It allows you to go, okay, look, here we are, and everything's okay. Like Odie is deathly afraid of Florida thunderstorms. He's deaf now, so now he doesn't care. But I'm telling you, I used to watch him. He'd see it. He'd be freaking out, shaking, and I'd give him and of course, he took 24 milligrams to calm down, and my Doberman, who's 60 pounds, he's 9 pounds, took 5 milligrams to calm down. So there you go on the weight. But I literally would watch him be calm, but going, thunder, there's lightning, why the heck do I feel okay? You know, it was like the funniest thing watching him experience that he's not freaking out anymore. So after time goes on, and they become more and more relaxed. Okay, it's dark outside, but I'm okay. And now he's deaf, so it's a non-issue, so it's beautiful. You like train him out of it. But cats show anxiety and stress much different than dogs. People think they're not. Most of the time they are stressed out. They're hiding and they're coming out of a room. And that's what's so great is that when people do try it, they all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, Mr. Whiskers never came downstairs before, and now here he is. So it's those types of things.
So how much do you recommend for some cats?
I would start with maybe 9 milligrams of the full spectrum hemp extract. I'm happy to show you guys what if you need help picking anything holistic. I think I've vetted and tried everything. Are there any other questions? Yes,
Yeah, have you had any experience with brain tumors with dogs?
absolutely.
Same regimen?
It depends on how big and aggressive it is, but I would absolutely add THC to a brain tumor.
It started, she's 10 years old, she's a English bulldog. The most recent situation was she had a really bad seizure that was caused from the growth of the tumor. And I think it was like just because of the bedding that we got from her.
The what? New bedding?
Yeah, and it spiked. We got her a different fabric for her. We got a different fabric for her to help with drooling and different things, and that's what we think caused it to happen, like a spike up.
You're exactly right. You guys have to realize that them being exposed to a new chemical, pesticide, a flame retardant put in the bed, who the heck knows what it's made out of, will trigger a seizure. So that's why it's really important for if your dog does suffer from something or suddenly gets sick that you go, what's different? Was it the vaccination? Was it a new handle? So very, very good.
Yeah, I was the one that caught the experience. So it was the first seizure ever actually was the spike. Because she ended up.
That's why you have always a full spectrum. You can give it to them when they're experiencing the seizure, and it will stop it.
Okay.
Done it a million times. But yeah, I would be doing at least 60 to 100 milligrams a day of full spectrum, and then I would add absolutely some THC. I always do it at night, so that, and when I say THC, I mean a full cannabis extract. I don't mean an isolate.
Yeah.
And I just get the, what do they call it here, Pico, or the oil RSO, and just a tiny half a rice size and put it up. If you want to go up a rice, you can, just build up.
Build up.
You want to be high, and you want to give them the CBD at the same time so that it dampens the effect.
Okay.
And then if you want to learn more about diet and medicinal mushrooms, I would absolutely incorporate turkey tail.
And that's all on your website that you were talking about? Fuck it, cancer? Okay.
Any other questions? If so, I'll be right here. You can ask me. I think there's another speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love it. Yes. Here, you take him. He misses you. Here's some cards.
Cool. And then it's just your same website
What's my name? I can write it down.
Here's a pen. I got her control. She's yes. She was pissed off. Go ahead and help him first. I love my dogs. No doubt. Really? I could tell.
Especially this day.
I could tell when you get coming in. You're like, oh,
I
there's
rescued this guy. We got him in the car. He knew he was coming home from a bad situation. He cried. I mean, just not one tear. We're talking tears pouring in. You see the back of his shirt? We cried with him.
That's our man.
Yeah, you guys like your Boston. So check this guy out.
Thank you.
He is the best dog ever.
So
I rescued him.
A little crash.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for the tip. I'm open to any advice.
What's funny is because we have a lot of other dogs that are more larger than him and hyper. He feels like he's in charge. Yes, he's in charge. He will go yell at the other one.
marketing, copywriting, including for Bovida. If you recognize my hat, save the terps. Bovida saves your terps. If you want a sample, talk to me after. But I am not the star of the show. These fine folks are, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we will get into the topic. I'm going to start with my great friend, Elise McRoberts.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Elise McRoberts. I am the founder of Hashionista. Hashionista is a consultancy. We specialize in building, launching, and growing brands. I'm also an event producer, a longtime Emerald Cup judge, a longtime High Times judge, and very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Oh, I should say I'm currently working with various brands in California, specifically in the beverage space, the water-soluble THC space, as well as concentrates and flower brands. Thank you, Elise.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jane Bergman. I am a hash sommelier and ganjier. What I do is I basically specialize in food and cannabis, or food and hash pairings, basically, to be more specific. And I also have produced my own event, Hash Masters Challenge. It was the same material hash making challenge. I also have judged numerous cannabis events around the world and have traveled around the world and just taken in both cannabis and hash and food culture. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to meeting all and discussing this with all you guys.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. Thanks for showing up to see this and really committing to these movements of the cannabis and psychedelic movements. It's just so much gratitude to see so many people here being able to commit to this education, and thanks for obviously watching our panel. My name is Philip Wolf, and I started Cultivating Spirits, and we've been doing cannabis dinners, cannabis and food pairing dinners for over 8 years now. I'm a Rolling Stone Culture Council member and do some articles for them. I do partnerships for dinners with the Fairmont Hotel Group. We've also done the first cannabis dinner ever approved by a municipality in 2015 in Aspen. And so a lot of knowledge there. But the reason I'm up here speaking at this conference is for Kashom, which is a cannabis masterclass program that is launching for connoisseurs and beginners. So I'm excited to share all of this with you all.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gigi Diaz. I'm an award-winning High Times chef. I'm also the CEO of Cannabis Concepts, which is also a catering company, and Healing Journey Retreats, along with Dose Wellness, which is also our psilocybin edibles company. I'm really excited to be here today, and I have some lovely supporters that flew in from St. Thomas and flew in from Michigan to come and see. And again, everybody that's here, I'm just so grateful that you guys came today, and hopefully we'll get to enjoy each other's company and share some wonderful information.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Pearson. I'm the CEO of Bang Inc., which is a publicly traded edibles company. We're famous for our Bang chocolate, among other things, but we are in 7 U.S. states. We are we're the number 1, number 2, and number 6 chocolate in Canada. Our CBD line is in 9 European countries. And I am also happy to be here. We're looking at breaking into the psychedelic space. So I think Cannadelic did a great job merging these two industries together. And the crowd was super fun for the last 3 days. And thank you for coming at the end of the conference. And if you have any questions afterwards, come see me. We're traded under BHNG.
Hey guys, I'm Alex Pasternak. I am a co-founder, the chief revenue officer, and the executive vice president at Binsk. Binsk is a multi-state cannabis brand that is just shy of 7 states. We're in 6 states. We're in Colorado, California, Nevada, Florida, Michigan, and Washington State. And I'm also happy to be here today, excited to get going on edibles. We specialize in edibles as well as vapes, concentrates, and flower products. We have a whole portfolio of products, and excited to jump into it today.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge. I want to jump right into it. We have a lot to discuss. I wanted to start by exploring some of the latest trends that you've seen in the infused space. We've come such a long way in such a short amount of time, from a kind of small catalog to now you're seeing beverages, you're seeing savory products. People are able to eat the cannabis that they want. Anybody on this panel could really speak to this, but I'm going to start with Elise. You've had such great experience in the edible space, specifically seeing brands come up. What are some of the trends that you're seeing now?
Well, I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear beverages, of course, the exploding new category. I've started judging edibles for High Times back in 2012 when it was just there we go. Thank you. Found it. Right? Okay. Got it. Thanks. It's my first time. Just kidding. It's my third today. So beverages are exploding. I got my start back in 2012 when it was, brownies and there wasn't a lot. And even just in the past 4 years, I think beverages in the Emerald Cup, which was a category I was judging, there were probably like 5. The next year there were 10. And now we probably have 30 something beverages in market in California. There's a whole event dedicated just to beverages. There's now beverages being segmented into other categories like herbal tinctures or beverage enhancers, RTDs, which is ready to drink, versus the higher potency ones that are encouraged to make your own beverage so that you can make your own kind of cannabis craft cocktail in a way at home. So just seeing a lot of people diving in and wanting to get into beverages because we as a culture are so big into drinking. And so that's one of the trends I see kind of taking over at the moment.
Absolutely. I would love to hear if any of the other panelists want to chime in. Alex, what have you been seeing? What do you feel is next?
Interesting thing for me is the other cannabinoids other than THC and CBD that are starting to take off. The number 1 and number 2 edible in California right now on the gummy side both have CBN in it. And for those that don't know, CBN is a nighttime sleeping aid, as they say. And so I think over the next few years, we'll see more and more of these other cannabinoids like THCV and CBG and different ratios of different cannabinoids to help in different regards. And so the CBN trend is a very interesting one to me as well.
What I was going to say is the trend for the nanotechnology with edibles is really taking off. One of the downsides of eating an edible is that it processes through your liver. So it takes anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much fat you've eaten and whether you've had alcohol, for an edible to take effect. So it's hard to take an edible and then wait an hour and then figure out, is this going to hit? When is it going to hit? So that fast acting technology really levels the playing field for edibles with other consumption methods. And we're starting to see the nanotechnology improve to where it delivers what it says it's going to deliver, which is hits in anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 minutes. And doesn't last as long. So that was the other downside of an edibles. Once you get on the ride, you can't get off. And sometimes that ride's really long. So I think that I predict pretty soon we're going to see the majority of edibles, having that nanotechnology included in their ingredients.
What about something that I've been seeing a lot of, and I'm sure you have as well, is a move toward an effects-based product versus a strain-based product. So focus, relax, sleep. Do you see us moving in that direction completely? Do you think there will still be a strain-specific product, or do you think we're going more toward the effects-based as far as the marketing goes? Go ahead, Chef Gigi, you have something? Yeah.
Actually, yes. I think marketing is going to play a huge. It already has. I'm sorry. The marketing actually is going to play a huge and important role, and I do think that that's what people are looking, just to have something that's just a little bit more clear and direct as to what the effects or what some people want to feel. They'll ask me, "I want to feel elevated. I want to feel happy. I want to feel," and so most people would go to a sativa or to an indica. I think more now the marketing as far as saying, well, focus or relax. I think that is really what's going to be big in the coming future.
What do you think, Philip?
Well, I think that we're broadening the feelings that people have, but I still personally, in my personal belief, going from sativa indica hybrid to 5 different types of feelings is still limiting the potential of the plant. And so unless you're adding in a CBN, with your THC, then it has the room to be, dedicated for night, because CBN, helps with sleep, obviously. But at the end of the day, THC is THC. So if there's not other active ingredients going on, then it's going to be hard to achieve those feelings. But to just expand beyond that, I think there's the opportunity to really allow people to be in better touch with themselves, and to try to empower them to even take it upon, bigger than those 5 different feelings that people will market it, because I truly feel that cannabis interacts with us all differently. So what might work for creativity for me might not work for this person as it's branded, but giving people an understanding that there's unlimited usage based on your own body, mind, and spirit allows the empowerment of the consumer to take it where they want to go, and if people are able to track that, then I think that they can really find just limitless feelings out of that.
I think as far as edibles go, I think people are kind of wanting something a little bit more effects based, because they want to know how it's going to affect them. It's different than inhaled or ingested smokable cannabis, and where strain specific is very important, because we're doing it more about flavor. And that's kind of where what I'm doing comes in, is where we're incorporating the flavor into the effect, because the terpenes affect kind of the whole outcome of everything. So in doing that, I think we're going to start seeing a separation, where people are coming to this when they're taking a product that is more medicinal in a sense. They're going to want something that's effects based, more of a relaxed, or an enhancement. But as far as if they're taking, if they're going to be smoking, or they're going to be dabbing, or they're going to be doing like a pairing sort of thing, they're still going to want strain specific. They're still going to want to know, what cannabis, because it's all about the appreciation of the cannabis flower and the terpenes that make up that flavor. And that's what a lot of us connoisseurs are here for at the end of the day, is the flavor of the cannabis plant itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think the key that everyone's talking about is terpenes, because we know it isn't, THC makes you high, but the terpenes drive the bus, and you're either going to drive toward the satellite sativa, or, you're going to go get in the couch and have the indica. But the reality is this effects-based marketing can do more harm than good, because we all, like Philip said, we get different people have different response to different cannabinoid content and different terpene profiles. So if you say that this product's going to make you horny, or this product's going to make you sleep, and it doesn't do that, then the problem with that is the consumer may not just say, oh, well, this product sucks. They might go, well, I'm not going to do cannabis, because they might assume that the cannabis doesn't do that to them. So I feel like as an industry, we need to be responsible for understanding that we're doing that when we do effects-based marketing. There are companies doing it disingenuously, and there are companies who are saying, to Alex's point, if you're putting a CBN in your product, and we know that is what that compound does, you have a more likelihood of having that person get sleepy when they're done consuming that product. But what we have to be careful of is, if you're going to put melatonin, or you're going to put some other compound that has that effect, yes. But if you're going to say, well, I'm using hybrid, and this is going to make you horny, that's not correct for all people. And we need to be right now we have to self-monitor, right, because all of this is on the honor system while we're in federal prohibition.
If you think about the fact that it's an industry in the infancy stages, these people are coming into the gatekeepers of the industry, which we all know are the bud tenders. And they're saying to the bud tenders, how is this product going to make me feel? And the bud tender says, this is going to make you horny, or this is going to make you sleepy, or this is going to make you happy. And so these companies decided, instead of having the bud tenders relay this information, let's just put it on our packaging. Let's just put horny, let's put bliss, let's put create on our packaging. And it's the most general statement of all of that. It's not going to apply to everybody. And it's, in my opinion, just 100% bullshit marketing. I think that we are shying away from indica sativa hybrid. I think the idea that people actually believe that indica means into couch is sad to me. It's not true. It's not the case. If 5 people smoke a sativa joint before a concert, like one of the 5 might be ready to pass out, Doesn't mean sativa is giving you energy and you're ready to go. It's just old concepts that are now outdated, and we're luckily starting to become more aware and move forward the whole industry.
Yeah, we need more education on terpenes, I think, really.
Oh, well,
Definitely.
I got you on the education on terpenes that I'll tell everyone in a minute. But I invite you, as we speak to all of this, it's like, how do you apply this to your own selves and your own knowledge, right? And so think about yourself and think about your likes, right? Think about what you like, think what you like to do, think about how you like to feel, because it's obviously probably different than your neighbor. And then, so that's really tuning into yourself, right? And then think about, why are you consuming whatever product you're consuming? What is your intention behind it? What do you actually want to achieve? And then what will you actually be doing whenever you consume that? And is that going to align with that at the end of the day? And then obviously think about where your mindset is, right? Set and setting. So what your mindset is, how you're feeling, how your body is, and then the environment that you're going to be consuming. And to me, those are like 5 very empowering questions that you can answer for yourself to decide what is going to be best for you. And then hopefully getting the proper knowledge from the bud tender or the packaging, or shameless plug, kashom.org, or but any of that though. So that's what I invite you to do as we are explaining all of this, to really how you can apply it to yourself potentially.
I was just going to say, in terms of where I think it's going, or the market, I think there's room for both. I think it's cool that there are cultivar specific products that intentionally don't mask the flavor of the plant, and they're intentionally bringing that flavor forward. There are hash gummies that taste like hash or taste like the cultivar they used, and beverages as well. And I think there's room for both, because like Sarah said, there are people who want to appreciate that flavor and those terpenes, and there are people who just want an effect and don't want to taste anything, or they want to taste sugar. And I think that's as diverse as, some people want really clean food and some people want more processed and a certain flavor.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And there was a central theme, though, that I kind of heard in all the panelists' answers, and it kind of comes back to education and knowing yourself. And I just want to really quick ask, show of hands, who here knows what a terpene is? Okay, so almost everybody. Okay, so great. Yeah, I do too. That's fantastic. Yeah, give yourself a round of applause, honestly. And my other question: show your hands if you want to out yourself. If not, that's fine too. No one's asking you, but. How many people here know exactly how much THC they need to consume that's right for their body? Who knows what's right for them? Okay, so not as far fewer
There's a
hands.
space for that, absolutely.
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's no wrong answer there, but that brings me back to education, and with dosing specifically in edibles, right? Because right now the onus is on the bud tender essentially to tell people how much they should take. And frankly, if you ask me, when you have even 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams as a starting dose, for someone who has, low tolerance or a certain body type or metabolism, a 5 milligram could hit very, very hard. And so how can we educate people about proper dosing? And do you think that the industry is doing enough at this point? Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been selling edibles now in the legal channels for 5+ years, and everybody wants to tell me the story of why they hate edibles, and I'm assuming everyone in the audience has a similar story of their first edible experience, and I just want to talk about it for a second. So your first consumption of an edible, age maybe 15 to 21-ish, you're trying a brownie or a cookie with an unknown dose, right? An unknown question mark about it. And so then it could have been a 5 milligram brownie, a 5 milligram, it could be a 50, it could be 500, like literally no clue, right? And so if we were to give every 15 to 21-year-old that was going to take their first shot of tequila a shot of tequila that was concentrated anywhere between 2 to 20x a normal shot of tequila worth, you bet your ass they would all hate tequila, have alcohol poisoning, and never want to try tequila again, and say tequila's not for me, right? And so the amount of people that say to me edibles are not for me, and then we dissect the story and you understand that it was from a black market time when they didn't have the ability to know how much they were consuming, and now we have the ability to know what your dosing is and know what a 2.5 milligram gummy is, or 5 or 10, or my dad in the audience knows that his number, for example, is 7 milligrams. Like, how would my dad know 7? Because he's been involved and aware and been able to figure out what his dose controlled number is, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So that story has just always stuck with me.
I want to pass this to Gigi because she's the chef here that does dosing all the time. But the biggest frustration that might set the ground floor of this, does anyone know why eating edibles makes you feel different than smoking? Okay, so we only have a handful of people, and this is the most frustrating aspect for me. And I worked with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment on their consumption lounges and mandatory education. And most people don't know that edibles process through your liver, where smoke goes through your blood-brain barrier. And so it's a completely different high. It's a completely different psychoactive effect. And so people who can smoke joints all day long, they eat an edible and they're wrecked. And that's because the bud tenders or whatever it is, people just don't know that. And so I think that's really something important when you're even thinking about dosing, because you can't compare it to smoking a bowl or smoking a joint or anything like that. And I know you're very familiar in this space,
I was
Gigi.
going to say, that is correct. A lot of people, they have the misconception that if they smoke a lot, that they can just eat any edible. It's not going to affect them. I smoke a lot. Don't worry about that. And I tell them that really doesn't matter. You still must start low and slow. That is the way to go, low and slow. That way you can understand what you can consume, how your body will react, and again, find the proper dosage. That's the advice I always give to all of my clients.
That's what we have on our packaging. We tell them specifically, take this dose and wait an hour. And I have the same experience with Alex. We've been in the marketplace since 2010. And I have, at this conference, people come up to me, Bang was the first edible I've ever eaten.
Yes.
And I ate the whole bar and I got really fucked up. And I was in the fetal position for 2 days. And I'm like, 10 years ago on the package, it said, take 1 square and wait an hour. But people don't, it's crazy.
Another thing about
excited. I'm
edibles.
so
Read the
excited.
instructions. But that's why I also think the nanotechnology is going to be huge, because it is going to allow people to manage that dose and that the whole process, because it does then take an edible through the blood-brain barrier rather than through the liver. So I don't want all edibles to go there, because there's a purpose for that as well. But having that technology is going to be a game changer when it's instituted correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a question out there.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
You're talking about bioavailability of cannabinoids. It really does depend on the nanotechnology. There are different processes. There's encapsulation, where they take the THC molecule, they get it down to that nano level, and they encapsulate it, or they do emulsification, or there's a combination. And it really depends on what type of technology you're using. The other problem that we're having with nanotechnology is that there are a lot of companies that say they're nano because they have water soluble nanotechnology, but there's no water in chocolate, for example. So if I were to use a water soluble nanotechnology in our hot chocolate product in powder form, then it's going to separate. You're going to have a big bunch of THC at the top. You're going to have a big, nasty, bitter flavor, and you're never going to try my product again. So you really have to know what you're doing. And I just think that's another thing, because we're an industry in our infancy. We don't have a lot of standards. We don't have federal, which I'm happy about. I mean, I'd rather have it that way than, that's a whole nother conversation. But you know what I mean? What you have to do is give these things a shot, figure out which products make sense, the ones you like, the ones that taste good, the one that works the way you want it. But to answer your question, it depends on the type of technology that's being introduced into that product. But most of them do have more bioavailability. That's kind of one of the benefits of that technology.
So I think that as people become more discerning, consumers become more discerning, they understand their proper dosage, they understand more about terpenes. I think that's when, and we're going to see more of the pairings, right? Like people wanting to personalize their experience, understand what terpenes they like the best for them, and how food can enhance the terps, and how the terps in the cannabis can enhance the food. So Sarah Jane and Philip, I would love for you both kind of speak on that experience. How are people, how are we advancing cannabis education by pairing our weed with food?
Well, what I've actually learned, and it was honestly through a whole bunch of series of accidents and experiments over a period of time, is that when you take a dab or when you add food, all of the food that you're eating has terpenes in it. So by adding terpenes into whatever you're eating prior to, and if you smoking or vaping, however you consume, you're going to change the effect. You're going to change the flavor of it. It's going to hit you different because if you terpenes in the cannabis or in the terpenes in the hash do something, and then all of a sudden you're adding, this and this variable, all of a sudden it does something completely different. My prime example is my first pairing that I did, strawberries and OG. If you eat a strawberry and then take a dab of OG afterward, it changes and enhances the entire flavor. It's something completely different, but it also hits you harder. It's like, whoa, this is way harder than if I took one huge dab. I feel this effect way more. And looking at it, the property of linalool, it is the most sedative terpene. And so when you break that down, it's not only is it the most sedative, it's the most sedative in the smallest amount. So the strawberry is also very, very high in linalool. So you add in the linalool and you're adding more, all of a sudden you're compounding the effect. And so you get this compounded effect. And so all of a sudden it hits you a lot stronger than it would if you were just taking the dab of OG by itself.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Beautiful. So I specialize in flower pairings, and so that's what we do. And 8 years ago we started pairing terpene profiles of cannabis with flavor profiles of food to harmonize and enhance, just as Sarah was speaking about. And it's an amazing experience because also your senses are enhanced whenever you're consuming, right? And then you're playing with these flavors, and so the flower doesn't hit you as hard as concentrate would, per se, but at the same time it creates everything to be more enjoyable. But the fun part is whenever I started messing around with pairing terpene profiles of cannabis, flavor profiles of food, like literally no one knew of terpenes at the time. I found 2 articles online about it from Kyle Cushman, and that was basically it. And I actually studied essential oils. So doTERRA, I actually really studied doTERRA to do a lot of this. And anyone who's not familiar with doTERRA, it's multi-level marketing. And so they have a ton of consumer education out there. So it was like my Bible. And as we started coming up with this, and what I realized was, I was like, not only can we create this gourmet experience, I can actually teach people how to identify the type of high they're going to have before they even consume by understanding the organoleptic properties of it. And then I was like, wow, we can make something that's so enjoyable, but also gives people the opportunity to learn about kind of conscious consumption, smoking with intention. What are you going to do and smoke something that's going to enhance that, and really trusting your own senses within that. And so to me, there's no better education, platform than sitting at a dinner, indulging yourself while being educated. But also symbolically, you're breaking bread with your neighbors and combining in the physical space. But in a lot of indigenous cultures, you have the opportunity to share smoke, which is really unification of the spirit. And so it really provides a wonderful container to not only bond, but also enjoy yourself and also be educated at the same time.
We need to collab.
I was going to say, from personal experience, I went to one of Philip's dinners like 5-6 years ago in Colorado, and that's where we met. And each course had a new flower strain that he was pairing the course with, and it was the first time I've ever seen anything like it. It was incredible.
That was fun. And we also had some great flour from Bent's could use at that event.
I also went to one of Philip's dinners at the Claremont, and it was bomb. So I just had to say that.
Now I have FOMO. That's okay. It's a thing. Now I got to do it.
Yeah, chocolate pairings are the best.
Yeah, chocolate's
as I'm sure
a great.
Sarah can speak to as well.
It's a great carrier
Oh,
for
absolutely.
cannabinoids.
I went to a wonderful Molly Peckler event with you guys back in the day.
Oh, you went to the pizza event. Yes.
We have a lot of fun in this space. I want to segue a little bit. We'll do one more quick topic, and then I want to open it up for Q&A. But I want to talk about psychedelics a little bit. Because I know for a fact that the psychedelic edibles movement is already happening. We're beyond just chocolates, we're seeing gummies, we're seeing a lot of different foods coming out. So I wanted to know, what can the psychedelic edible scene learn from cannabis? How will it be different? How is it coming up? I think Chef Gigi, you wanted to speak on that a little bit as. Yep.
Yes, well, pretty much like how everything started years ago, getting everybody acclimated to dosages, getting everybody acclimated to the right dosages and things like that. This is where we're restarting that all over again. And I think microdosing right now is really helping people feel comfortable and safe with beginning their psychedelic journey. Just same thing like we talked about with the edibles. People, you hear these, oh my God, I took shrooms one time and I had this horrible trip. And so it's kind of like you have to make them feel more comfortable coming back around this time with it, because so many people have had the same experience with edibles, with edibles like they're going to have, like they've had with psychedelics. So I think right now it's just about, re-educating the customer to feel safe and to start again, low and slow. And it's also a personalized experience depending upon what you're trying to achieve. Because I also, do retreats, okay, the healing journey retreats. And so again, we use psychedelics, and it's a very personalized experience. So I think pretty much the same thing that's happened with edibles is going to, with the cannabis edibles is going to be happening here with the psychedelics.
So we're developing a mushroom chocolate, a psilocybin chocolate right now. What the issue is, a couple of things, is getting access to a lab. Because it isn't, you can't just grind up a bunch of mushrooms, throw them in a chocolate, and then say, this is 5 milligrams. This is, it's the same thing. So in order to have accurate dosing, you have to have accurate lab results. You have to have access to, and because it's, it's decriminalized in some places, these labs are coming to the forefront. They're doing some of this work. Everyone, it just reminds me of cannabis a long time ago. But if we're going to develop products that give people a good experience, it's the same thing. You want to give them a product where they can know when they take one triangle, that's a microdose. But what does the word microdose mean to everybody?
Right.
That varies also. We were just talking today, there's a lot of professionally packaged psilocybin edibles or psychedelic edibles on the market, and they all vary. Say this dose is a microdose, this dose is a party, this dose is a whoa. But if you take that dose, a microdose of this product, this product, and this product, you're going to have 3 different experiences. So we also in the psychedelics industry need to start standardizing some of that language of what a consumer can expect from the experience.
And then
The various strains as well,
Yeah, I was
the
about to
various
say the
effects as well, the strains, that's very important. Like we were talking about, people want to have an uplifting experience. Some people want to have more of a down, but just more of an in-depth experience. And again, knowing the strains, knowing the effects, I think we're really starting all over again, like we did in cannabis.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah Jane.
We're moving into a lot of like extractions with all of the mushroom gummies and chocolates and stuff, because it is so hard, like she was saying, to dose them. And so we're moving into that point that it's easier to do an extraction so you can do an even uniform dose. But again, the strain is so important, because if you take like a little bit of Cubensis versus, some some penis envies,
Right,
or something like that, you're gonna fly. It's like a 0.1 here is vastly different to a 0.1 of this strain. And I
Yes.
think that needs to be taken into consideration. And I think where we really need to go with this is honestly more research needs to be done. So as cities start to decriminalize, like we have in Oakland and parts of different parts of California, we're going to start to be able to do more research, like Oakland Hyphy is, when the testing, and then we're just going to be able to start developing more uniformed dosed edibles and start being able to work on like effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want to be the negative person up here, because everything that's being talked about is super, super important. And because every person's going to have their own pathway, as we discussed in the beginning, of what is going to be good for them. And so, what I'm kind of hearing over here is that a microdose is going to be up to your individual, understanding of that, not a package, right? So everyone needs to check in with themselves. But I think one thing that we have to caution about whenever we're making everything so standardized when it comes with these plant medicines sometimes, so again, while that's very important, there's also a wisdom that all of this medicine has. And there's a wisdom with that interacts with your body. And so sometimes you don't take the dose that you think you need to know. Honestly, it's probably something different is what is actually needs to be called to your body. And so I don't want to bypass, I want to believe in Lucy Tapahanso from the Navajo Nation says, we believe in a poem, Changing Woman, we believe in old traditions and new ideas, right? And so a way to merge it where we can have something where the dosages are more standardized and people can pay attention to that, but we also make sure we don't lose the wisdom of the medicine with the experience that we're supposed to have. There is no bad trip out there. Right? Like you might have had a hard experience, but there's no bad trip out of there because that gave you the opportunity to potentially address something that you may not have addressed. And I think it's really important within our society to really understand that like we need to face some of the shit that we're going through and not just feel all floaty and amazing all the time, but understand that that's okay. Right? And then there's the opportunities there instead of seeing it as a negative experience.
I think that's where guides are honestly really important in the psychedelic realm. Whereas, in the cannabis realm, you could just have the bud tender, but in the psychedelic realm, you really need to have somebody that you consult with, a guide, maybe even a trip sitter, somebody. So that way, because when you're messing with your mind a lot more. Psilocybin is one of the few things that's actually proven to regrow neural pathways. So when you're doing that, you are messing with your mind. And so be it for better or worse, I think Philip is right that we need to have, a little bit more caution moving into the psychedelic realm, but there's a lot that can be learned. And I think having some guidance, a lot of guidance in this, especially if you're new, is very, very important.
Yeah,
I just think it's cool. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say a hero dose of psilocybin can theoretically just have an impact for the rest of your life. And a hero dose of cannabis, you're just going to feel a little rough the next morning. I guess what I'm trying to say is this fungus just is a serious medicine that needs to be taken very serious. And clearly THC needs to be taken serious, but it's a different whole thing here that we're talking about.
And I was just going to say that to that point, what makes me happy about the whole, just this conference is a perfect example of the fact that plant medicine is becoming normalized in society. And what gives me hope about that, makes me happy about that is I just think about people in my life who have been able to open their minds a little bit more to different new ideas through the use of psychedelics or through the use of cannabis. It gives you access to different parts of your brain, to empathy, and to some things, or the ability to heal trauma. And as a society, I think it's a perfect time for, especially in America, well, probably worldwide, but especially in America, for people to have access to something that's going to give them the ability to tap that part of their brain where maybe we could have a little bit more understanding for one another as we become more divided, politically. Maybe these plant substances are coming into vogue in a way that's going to help humanity figure some shit out.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't even medicines for us. This is medicines for the earth, essentially, because we need to take these medicines in order to heal this thing. And I'm a true believer that this is medicine for the earth and not even medicine for humans.
A lot of my clients that come to the retreats are actually a lot of people that have tried everything and have had hardly any success. And so they're looking for something that's going to help them really more or less look inward so they can articulate their feelings and their emotions. I think for me, I'm really excited about this because like she was saying, this is something I think that we all really need to participate in so that we can realign ourselves and connect better with each other.
And comparing to cannabis, I think cannabis is going to end up being truly a product, and I think psilocybin is going to be a service. And I think there's a fundamental difference between a product and a service. And
yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and that's been a central theme I think throughout the whole conference that I've heard for sure. I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for Q&A, so I'd love to open it up if anybody has a question. Yes, right over here.
Whoa.
It's very dangerous. What has to happen is we've got to have physicians and we have to have pharmaceutical companies and pharmacists educated about cannabinoid interaction. That it's very dangerous to take a benzo with CBD, for example. And almost the entire country wakes up in a location where they have daily access to CBD. We are going to have to require that the medical schools are teaching this, that the pharmacies understand it, and so the reason it's not happening is because we have, it's federally illegal.
Yeah, scheduling has to change.
So
that matters.
yeah, so we got to think of the medical industry, right? In the late 1800s, plant medicines were deemed alternative, and so they were pushed out of schooling, and everything was, they started pushing away to it, to really having more of a system of having a medicine actually heal something, opposed to more of a therapeutical approach. And so it's going to have to change federally, but then it's going to have to change within the schools, right? It's going to have to happen at the medical schools where they're actually being educated on this stuff. So then they can also legally speak about it, because a doctor can't legally speak about a lot of the things because they'll get their license pulled ultimately,
Who shouldn't be?
Gas stations.
Gas
I
station.
don't think anybody up
just to
here
play devil's
wants gas
advocate, not
stations
every-
selling cannabis products.
Not every dispensary, not every bud tender is educated, right? Yeah. You're talking about like 50,000 bud tenders in the U.S.
So-
by next year. So like, it's the same kind of thing. It's not that far off from a gas station attendant, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
The
And I
drug
would say with-
interaction with a federally scheduled drug, that interaction, that education should start with the pharmacist, in my opinion. If I'm on something that's they know, all those pharmacists know, and all those physicians know that we've got a cannabis movement, we've got a psychedelics movement. They would be naive to not know that. So I think it's up to the professional community, but they don't want malpractice either.
Yeah.
So we're in a litigious society. There's a whole bunch of stuff working against all of us.
Also liability. This is another thing a lot of people don't talk about as far as like cannabis dinners, even with this, I'm having psychedelic dinners. So even with that, like you were saying earlier, the liability, I actually have people fill out a little questionnaire, a little form to give me a little bit more information about themselves. We do it more as like a patient-client, patient relationship more so. And that actually helps us to better individualize the experience.
I want to hear what Philip has to say first.
Well, I was going to say, like Alex said, if you're working with psychedelics, it's going to be a service, and you should be someone who can help you guide the experience. And then that person should have a level of understanding if there is a medical condition going into that, that where they can at least give you the guidance of what they know. And that might be, we don't know anything, right? Or something that makes you feel comfortable at it. And so that's what I was going to say on the psychedelic side, because that's going to be a lot more of I don't want to say dangerous. It's going to be a lot more of a chance for it to be impactful to you than THC is going to be.
I think if you think about the fact that everyone's asking these bud tenders, why should I try these products, or what do you recommend? It's because they clearly don't know. When's the last time you went into a liquor store and said to the liquor store clerk, do you recommend Tito's or Grey Goose or Kettle, right? Like, we've formed our own opinions on which vodka we like because it's been so many years of trying so many products. Where cannabis, all sorts of psychedelics, like, we don't know these answers. You have to ask what you feel like is the most trusted person, which in this case is a bud tender. I would argue that we should probably be doing our own research and not relying on bud tenders all the time, just because of sheer volume and how hard it is to educate them. I run just like Jamie, I run a bud tender education program around the country where we're trying to educate bud tenders at scale to retell our story on a daily basis. So we have third-party educational tool, a third-party LMS learning platform where bud tenders go on and they get educated on our brand and our products. And that's taken the greater course of the last 5.5 years to do. So it's not easy. And I think the answer is going to trusted professionals to get the answers.
Well, I think it needs to be said that it needs to be studied before anyone gives the answer. And so the fact is, someone has to fund those studies. So, if a pharmaceutical company had a reason to fund that study, which would probably be to say that someone wouldn't die from combining their product with cannabis, they would do that study, but they don't seem very motivated to fund those studies. So maybe it's up to the cannabis brands to fund their own to take consumer safety.
I know. Sorry, I don't want to cut off this conversation, but we have a lot of questions. So is that okay? I'm gonna. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as cannabis goes, the only cannabis that can be studied is from the University of Mississippi. And that doesn't actually equivalent to what is going to be what's on the market, so anything that can go through a study that goes like the FDA or something like that.
Sue Sicily successfully sued them though, so that's changed.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not
She can
true
grow her
anymore.
own mushrooms.
Well, that's mushrooms. Is
Wow.
that cannabis though?
There's
Yeah,
now a
that's not
few
true
other
anymore.
licensed places. Yeah,
it's-
but
yeah,
just a
there's-
few.
Yeah, just a few.
There's a few.
All right. Yes.
Just wanted to highlight, we're obviously in a space where cannabis is taking so long to roll out, and psychedelics are happening much faster. You can see that in the response in our government. The FDA was rolling out multiple FDA-funded studies for psychedelics, and they were kind enough and generous enough to throw us, a scrap of a PTSD study from Michigan State University for 350 veterans, But it's obviously after COVID and all the isolation people have been through, wellness is the number one thing that people in America and we're obviously having like a re-emotional awakening in the country, and things are moving so quickly, that we have CT scheduling, we have wonderful options like what Reggie's doing at Hyphy Labs, and like New Jersey, just be scheduled one line, no regs, it's people don't know what to do with that. And I find it to be so interesting, because as you were asking, where do you find treatment? Like, and how you said sometimes, those like a hero days helps, but also we have a lot of chop shops in the cannabis industry. People that weren't interested in wellness, people that came in only focused on money, and now we have some of the emerging markets with predatory lending and oversight. But I feel like the opening of the psychedelic industry needs to really, really be focused on medical wellness, because you don't want to have people that are speaking people off their SSRIs, a ketamine drip and a psilocybin dose with some LSD out the door without some kind of regulated aftercare. Because I know you're thinking we're messing with people's minds a little bit, but we're really fucking about people's souls. I mean, this really intrinsically touches, it's the very core of humanity. And it's like the education is the most important part. And I think I love that we have Cannadelic, the intersection of cannabis and psychedelic, because some people don't really realize how active the psychedelic space already currently is. So I just want to say, if you're looking into it, make sure that you're doing it with people that are professional, that don't totally,
Well, that's what Alex said, is that it's service versus experience. Yeah. Yeah, and there's snake oil salesmen for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for that insight. I appreciate that. Yes, right back here.
Are you well rested? Did you work out last night? How'd you sleep last night? Do you have alcohol in your system? Do you have THC in your system?
Have you eaten any fried foods or meat? Or have you eaten?
Right.
Yeah, full stomach, empty stomach, huge difference. Also psychedelics.
Yes, and earlier we're talking about concentrates, and that's a very good point about doing different concentrates. I know like the lemon tech technique really helps. I know I utilize that when I'm doing dinners for the simple fact that, mushrooms sometimes can have a little hardness on your stomach.
They make me nauseous.
And so, yes, they definitely make you nauseous. And so, that's just something that you really want to try to curb and stuff. So using the concentrates and whatnot really help that. Because the last thing you want is to have an edible experience and vomit from food. So the concentrates are very important in helping as far as taste and effectiveness as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually don't post that on our website, but it's metabolism is the bottom line. If you're working out regularly, you're going to have things go through your body much quicker than if you don't have
It kind of goes to what Philip says. You got to kind of figure yourself out. I mean, and one of the hard parts of this is because we are new. We don't have federal legalization that allows a lot of studies. Most of this is anecdotal. And then the other side of that is the suggestion that brands should be funding our own studies. That's an interesting idea. From our standpoint, we shy away from the concept of making medical claims because that's how brands get in trouble. So you have to, what we do is we partner with doctors. The Knox Doctors is a great example. We have a partnership with them. They can make medical claims. So right now you just have to parallel process trying to provide good, clean product that has dosing that's consistent, reliable, and tell people to go slow. Low and slow is the way to go, and everyone's got to figure it out for themselves. I mean, unfortunately, that's the world we live in right at this moment in time. So that's where we are.
Did you all see that article that said CBD helped with COVID? It went around in the news not that long ago.
Yes,
Do you know
yes, I
who
did.
funded that study? Does anyone know? It was the hemp industry. That's how that article went around. So the hemp lobbying group. So what I meant is we could all band together and maybe get some research done and spread the information.
Yeah, but
Let's band together
Yeah,
rather
no.
than separate.
I agree with you
Yes.
1,000%. It's just it can't really be done at the brand level. It needs to be done at an industry level. So if all of the edibles manufacturers got together
would
and
be
said, let's
great.
fund a study, that's different than if I fund a study and then also if I do that, then it looks like a cash grab or like I'm trying to, we all just have to be careful. I just want everyone to be aware that all of this has legal implications.
The liability, just like I was saying.
Yeah, for sure. We have time for probably one more question. And I also encourage you to come to any one of us after the panel at any time. If you see us, anyone would be happy to answer any question that you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who was that? Was that directed to me? Yeah, Alex and I have known each other for a long time. What your question is, how do we approach marketing and branding of a psilocybin product? Couple things. We're 12 years old, so we were born in Oakland in 2010. So we sort of have a been there, done that, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And I'm personally willing to go to jail. So if some shit happens, the buck stops with me. But that's number one. Number two, Tom Zuber of Zuber Lawler is our psychedelics attorney. He knows what he's doing. And I don't make any moves without running it through him.
I would say that it's hopefully coming from a place of standing and not branding. Like, what do we stand for? What is the mission? What we do to do this in an appropriate way? How are we getting back to the earth? And I hope it starts coming from that, and people can start aligning with brands from that point of view, especially in the psychedelic industry. I don't know if it'll go that way, but that's my hopes.
And that is exactly right. We won't put anything out in the marketplace that doesn't taste good, doesn't do exactly what it says it's going to do, that the dosing's not consistent. So you won't see our product in the market until we've got it right.
Personally, from my side, big fan of the psychedelics, but we're focusing on THC and keeping our head down over here. But it's fascinating to your point, and personal use, huge fan.
You can Cookies is another example of a brand. They've got like a whole brand now called Caps. And so it's not psychedelic mushrooms, obviously, but it's other medicinal mushrooms, reishi and lion's mane. And so they're selling those, and you can buy those online, and I'm sure in hemp shops. And if you know the Cookies model, Cookies became very famous because of their clothing line launching at the same time, or popularity as their strain, and their flower was also very popular. But that exploded because the flower was actually fire and great, and thus everyone wanted the clothing. But I'm sure they're having these non-psychoactive mushroom products out there, preparing for something out there. And that's what I think other brands are probably poised to do and thinking about doing.
Yeah, and then for myself personally, it's not necessarily a branding, but how I've been interacting like with my client and approaching for their personalized experience is through my own personalized experience, which I was diagnosed with a very rare cancer of last year, and that actually had me feeling very anxious, depressed, and through microdosing and psychedelics, it actually allowed me to connect with why I was feeling those ways, allowed me to express myself better and to actually receive treatment and go through my journey with my head up high and again able to connect with my clients that are coming to me because I can understand from some level their reason for coming and the experience that they want to have.
We're actually out of time. I know that there's more questions that we didn't get to, so please make sure to come up to any one of us after. I do want to give everybody really quickly, first of all, I want to say thank you so much to the panel for being here, taking the time out of your schedules. Really quick, let's go right down the line. How can people get in touch with you or follow you? Elise.
Elise McRoberts.
On Instagram, hit her up. Sarah Jane.
Sarah Jane 420, SarahJain 420 on Instagram.
If everyone wants to whip out their phones right now, you can go to kashom.org and we'll give you a free masterclass when it launches in March, CASHOM.org, and enter your email address. And then Philip 1L_Wolf, just like the animal _ on Instagram.
Wait.
Yeah, sorry, kashom.org, CASHOM.org. We're also on the signs around the place too. You can find it.
Mine is a High Times Top Cannabis Chef Gigi on Instagram and also Cannabis Concepts on Wix.
Bangnation.com, bang.chocolate, and I'm Jamie Pearson, MT for Montana because I live in Montana, from Montana. Wes, will you come up and take a group photo, please? Because I want to take a flight after Alex is done.
Website is binsk.com, BINSKE. The E is silent, so like the word smoke or any other word. Binsk, often mispronounced Binsky, but binsk.com. Instagram is Binsk. My personal Instagram is Alpast, ALPAST. And thank you all.
And you can follow me, StayGold612 on Instagram. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, great job, guys.
I'll be in touch.
You can just.
Perfect.
All right, awesome.
Good
work.
job, everyone.
Good job, guys. Yeah.